Hi, I'm Dustin, one of the Ozcode magicians, and in this video we're going to look at the Ozcode export feature. Examining objects and their values while debugging code is a common task, and Visual Studio makes it pretty easy to do that. But there is another common scenario that Visual Studio does not help us with, and that is saving the state of those objects for use in other areas. Many times we need to recreate an object and put it into a specific state. Writing unit test is a perfect example of this. The problem here is that we can see the state of an object while debugging, but there's no way to capture it for later use. So we have to spend our time manually writing code to build the object. And depending on the complexity of the object, this can be a tedious and time-consuming task. With Ozcode's export feature, this is no longer a task we have to suffer with. Let's take a look at how it works. We have a simple MVC site with a sign-up form. The form submits details to the submit controller, which checks if an email address was provided, and if so, passes the information to the sign-up service for further processing. We have a unit test that ensures the sign-up service is called only when an email address is provided. At the top of our unit test, we are initializing our test object. This is where we would populate all of the properties and get the object into a specific state. Instead of doing it by hand, let's use the export feature instead. To do this, we'll just set a breakpoint in our action method and then submit the form. When we break, we can examine the sign-up details object and its values just like normal. To get the export, right-click and select Export from the context menu. Export gives us a few different options. At the top, we have 3 tabs. One for C#, which gives us C# code for instantiating an instance of the sign-up details object with the current values of the instance we're examining. The XML and JSON tabs give us XML or JSON output that can be used to deserialize and rehydrate an instance. These options are great for quickly loading different data sets or sending the output to developers for review. The JSON output is created using JSON.NET, the industry standard .NET JSON serializer, so this gives Ozcode a lot of flexibility. The C# export has a few additional options. The first is to include the fully qualified type names, which will help eliminate any confusion if you have multiple namespaces with the same type name. Next are options to include non-public members. These won't help when instantiating the objects, but it's still useful when you need to know the values, or if you're sending the details to developers for review. This way nothing gets left out. If you have a more complex object graph, you can change the depth to include more of that graph. From here, we can save this to a file or we can copy to the clipboard. Let's copy this to the clipboard and update our unit test. Now when we run this unit test, we'll have a fully populated object that represents the exact state we want it to be in, but we didn't have to manually write the code to set it up. Another export option that Ozcode gives us is the ability to export data in a collection out to Excel. We can access the Export to Excel feature from the magic wand when examining a collection. This is useful when you want to graph or do any advanced processing to better understand your data. In this video, we looked at the export feature, which lets you export an object graph to C#, XML, or JSON. When it comes to debugging, Visual Studio is a powerful tool, but it doesn't provide all of the tools that we need, like exporting object graphs. This is a great example of how Ozcode fills the gaps that Visual Studio has. In the next video, we'll be looking at how Ozcode enhances existing Visual Studio functionality when we check out setter breakpoints and trace points. Thanks for watching.